All right, we have devastating news for Trump and MAGA. This is not coming from a Democrat. This is coming from CNN's numbers guy, Harry Enten. And we have now learned that Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill is the most unpopular piece of legislation passed by Congress in decades. Harry Enten went back through the archives and looked at every major piece of legislation since 1990. That's 35 years ago. And there is nothing even close to as unpopular as the tax bill passed by Trump and Republicans. You look at Obamacare. Obamacare was the prototypical terrible bill. Republicans framed it as being hellish and dystopian, and it was just a punching bag. They voted 60 something times in the House to repeal it. And of course, they never were able to do that. And yet, Obamacare was -8 in net approval when it passed. The George W. Bush bank bailout of 2008 was -14 net approval when it passed. Bill Clinton's 1993 budget, which Republicans spent months saying it's going to tank the economy. It didn't, by the way. Bill Clinton's 93 budget had a -10 net approval. All were disliked at the time. Trump's big, beautiful bill has net approval of -17. Now, that's the average. CNN, CBS, Fox News, some of them have it at -19 approval. Some of them have it at -22. Pew has it at -14. The best poll for Trump on the bill, which is from the Wall Street Journal, still has it 10 points underwater. When your best number is -10, you've got a real problem. Now, it gets more interesting when you break it down and look at independents. Independents are often, rightly or wrongly, considered the group that can decide the outcome of elections. 30% of independents like the bill, 69% oppose the bill. That's -39 among independents. And in swing states, those are the numbers that can lead to a blowout against you, possibly in the midterm elections of 14 and a half months from now. So we look at independents, it's a disaster. Democrats obviously hate it. And even among Republicans, the bill is less popular than Trump himself. Now, why does this matter is really the question. When a president's own base isn't fired up about his one signature policy achievement, there's one bit of policy, the tariffs are off and on. Trump's the peace guy, but he bombed Iran. And, some of this stuff is a little bit amorphous. But in terms of what's the biggest piece of legislation, if any, that Trump got passed? It's the big, beautiful bill. And even many Republicans are sort of yeah, we don't really love it. Hard to defend it in conversations with friends. Hard to defend it in social media because it really isn't a good bill. It's very bad for a lot of people in the United States. This is how a political narrative can sour. And what we know from modern presidencies is that once a country sours on the president, it's very hard to get it back. Now, what they're doing at the White House is sending out J.D. Vance to try to sell it. It's sort of like trying to, sell a crappy flip phone in 2025. Very few people are going to be convinced that that's what they want and that that's what's best for them. But since last month, J.D. Vance, in the middle of a bunch of vacations that he's taking, has been going out there and saying, there are so many benefits in this bill for hardworking Americans. And then behind the scenes, the strategists are saying, how can we got to change the name of this thing. We've got to figure out what to do because people hate it, absolutely hate it. Now, the problem for Republicans going into 2026 is, well, let me put it a different way. If Democrats are smart, they will weaponize disgust for this bill in House races and in Senate races. And it's up to Democrats to figure out the right way to do it. What's the language to do it? I would say the Democratic strategists know how to do it. The 2024 election is at least some evidence that maybe Democratic strategists have no idea what to do. But if you are, for example, a Republican in a Biden-Harris district, or you're in a close Trump district, and now you're tied to this bill, which polling shows is less popular than any major piece of legislation in 35 years, what do? Because if you're in the House and your reelection becomes a referendum on this bill, that's not going to be good for Republicans at all. And history backs it up. Obamacare's unpopularity helped Republicans sweep the House in 2010. You look at Bush's handling of the 2008 bailout. That was a disaster for Republican candidates in 2008. Even if you go back to 1993, the 93 Clinton budget helped, or let me say, it hurt Democrats, and Democrats had a disastrous 1994. Republicans came to power. Newt Gingrich became Speaker of the House, and by the way, that there's a big section about that in my book, The Echo Machine, and that is part of how we ended up with Trump decades later. So Trump and MAGA have a real problem here. They can rename the bill. I don't think it's going to make a difference. They can send J.D. Vance to, every diner at 5 a.m. on Fox News that they want to. The numbers are the numbers. Americans hate this bill, and it is an anchor that is tied to the ankles of these Republicans. And I don't know if they can cut it off in time to save the midterms. We will see. Let me know what you think.